Let's all go to Schoology. We see that we have a posting. It was the last post before class of an image, a rather large image, a raw image. So let's save that file to our folder for this project. Now let's go find that file. There it is after we saved it to the desktop. Let's hide our Google Chrome, and we'll also hide our Photoshop, and then bring that file from our desktop to our folder where this project will reside. We are creating a new folder, calling it From Start to Finish, to contain all of the elements necessary for this simple project and lesson. Now, let's begin by creating that canvas to the specifications necessary for our client. We all know what that is. There are several templates already created here, but we are going to use the specifications required by our client, which is 15.097 inches by 10.037 inches at 300 pixels per inch RGB. We're going to use a vertical canvas this time, even though our original image is horizontal. Let's open our original image. And let's separate it so that we have two free floating windows on our Photoshop desktop. And we are going to simply drag that image, which is a background layer, to our canvas. Our canvas is already created at the specifications required by our client, and our image is a high-resolution, large file, which will ensure us a good crisp image as we work within our canvas. I'm going to name our first layer the original. As you know, we always want to keep our original file at the bottom so that we can always refer to it when the client needs it and when we also need it. You can see that the canvas is a window and that our image, which is horizontal, is showing through our vertical window. I want you to get used to the transformation tool and to use it correctly to size things proportionately by holding down the Shift key when you scale, and just start moving images through your window to see exactly what vertical image do I want to pull out from this horizontal raw image from the camera. I want to focus on the jumping Steeler, but I'm not sure if I want to have the grouping of players behind him or the other receiver behind him. So I'm just looking at this through the window and kind of assessing it aesthetically. How do I want to focus the viewer's eye on this jumping Steeler? Do I want to see number 22? Do I want to see the camera operator? I think this is the shot I want, so I'm going to duplicate it to use my first tool. The first tool is going to be saturation. The image has really good color. I want us to get used to the variations and the subtle attributes available through these tools, so you can see that I'm just saturating slightly. I'm going to go through this quickly because I just want you to see the use of multiple layers, with each layer being a tool or an effect. I want you to just follow along as we did in class and see how we build the PSD file with every step as we progress through our project. This project does not necessarily have a specific goal as to where I'm going with the final look, but I just want you to see rather dramatic changes. I am not sure that I will like the final outcome, but I want you to see drastic effects and adjustments that are available. You can see that I have duplicated the original layer, and I'm going to name it what my next effect will be, and it will be for a border with a level change to start giving a darker vignette around the image, because I want to start focusing attention on the jumping stealer. You can see that the overall image is way too saturated, but as I get the marquee tool with my favorite number of 387 for my feathering, I will then begin to cut a hole, a very soft hole, to give me a slight vignette. Now I will duplicate these two layers, my tool 1 and tool 2. I will merge them so that I have both of those adjustments as one file to do my next step, which will be my tool number 3, which is a merged layer. I'm going to continue working on the border. I'm going to duplicate that merge layer for tool number 4. And I'm going to turn this image into a black and white image. I'm wanting you to see the different ways to turn a color image into black and white. You can either use saturation and remove all the color through diminishing your saturation, or you can go to the black and white adjustment tool, which gives you a number of steps, of which I'm going to go through all of them to show you the uniqueness of these filters, which originated in the darkroom. As I click through them, watch the differences. These color filters, when projected through an enlarger, turn certain colors in black and white, various tones. On some of them you'll see the gold disappear. Other times you'll see the green grass change. You'll see all these different colors that are now black and white changing as we use color filters. My goal is to make this stealer no longer look like a stealer, but be a catching machine, an iRobot, not having any identity. I'm going to turn him into a dark character, eliminating black and gold, but allowing him to be a catching machine, a robot. You can see that as I finally have chosen the blue filter, still clicking back and forth with some of the other options, I like how it is really taking away any identity of a stealer. The gold has completely gone away. The gloves have changed, the face is dark, it's beginning to look like a robot. But it's a little too contrasty, so I'm going to reduce my contrast and just continue to play with tools. I want you to just see the availability of the many adjustments that we have through Photoshop. I want you to enjoy your enhancements. I want you to be creative. I want you to just see all the tools available within the many options and layers of Photoshop. Now you can see that I'm going to turn this black and white image into a sepia tone image. So I duplicate that layer, keeping every step. I go to another adjustment tool, and once again, all of these adjustments are made according to my personal perspective and aesthetic tastes. but I need to make sure for a client that I'm addressing issues that he wanted while providing him a creative service. In this project, I'm doing things rather exaggerated so that you can see the stark differences. I'm throwing in some grain. I want you to get used to the many tools available. Just enjoy watching, clicking through the menu options. Experiment with your projects. Give yourself some time and a number of layers to work with. Take time to experiment and see whether you like or dislike some of the enhancements. Keeping all of the layers as I'm showing you in my layer folder is very helpful to go back a step if you need to. Now I'm going to create another final border, a final vignette. I want to make sure that I match everything, so I'm going to add a blur. The whole image is blurred now, but once again, I'm going to cut out around my stealer with a very soft feathered edge so that he begins to pop off of the image while the background remains blurred. I'm not going to do a very tight cutout. I want this to be a very gradual vignette from the sharp image to the blurred background. You can see that I'm using a 117 feather with this. It's rather soft, but it's not as wide as the 387 that I used for the oval marquee vignette. I'll be clearing this part that we cut out, and you'll see the differences as I click on and off. Can you see the hole? There, do you see the blur? Look at the gentleman with the 22 jersey on. He's sharp, then he's blurred. Now I'm going to add noise to this layer because I just blurred the noise, so I want to make sure that the noise in the grain of this blurred layer is the exact same noise and grain on the sharp part. I'm going to now duplicate this layer and create one final darker vignette to focus the eyes on the jumping stealer, or rather, the football catching machine, our iRobot. Have fun using the sliders and seeing the minute changes that can happen with all of these adjustments. You can make shapes using your oval marquee by holding down the Option key to take away some of the selected areas, or you could use the Shift key to add to the selected areas. Experiment, learn these functions, have a good time. Now you can see the difference. We're trying to highlight the athlete, blur the background, darken the background, but we've also taken away his identity. His mask is dark. His gloves no longer stand out. You can't see his gold stripes. He's turning into a iRobot catching machine. I'm merging those layers so that I have a final layer, which is my image. You'll notice that I always name all of the layers as I create them so that it's easy to remember the steps that I've taken as I've created this image. Perhaps I will not like one of the final steps and I can go back and redo something from a step that I am pleased with. There is our original. There is our final. These are the steps that we took together to get to the final. Now let's save this project and let's name it accordingly. We want this to be our PSD file. It'll be in our folder from start to finish. There we go. Jumping Stealers start to finish PSD file. We have now saved this file to our folder as our PSD file with all of the layers. We also want to save as in the format required by our client and required for every class when we submit a project. A JPEG file at the maximum quality. But we always want to make sure by reopening that file through Photoshop that it is exactly in the specifications required by our client. So let's go to image size, and there we see we have it 10.037 by 15.097 at 300 dpi. Our JPEG file is the exact size required by our client. Now if we open our folder, there we see we have our original image from the camera that was provided through Schoology, provided by our client. We have the PSD file and we have the saved JPEG file at the right specifications that must be submitted to the client and the production house. One thing I forgot to do, and you guys can tease me about this, I forgot to make my required layers. So let's do that now so that our PSD file has everything that our client requires, which is the white layer, the black layer, and the blank layer. Remember from class, we can duplicate our background layer which has a lock. We can rename it white, throw away the background layer with the lock. We can go to our hamburger, create a new layer, name it black, fill it with black, and then we can go to our hamburger, make a new layer, call it blank, and we have all the required layers now that our client asks for and our boss. Let's click them off and go through the steps. We have our white layer, black layer, blank, and I'll just click through all of the effects from the original to the final, including the merged layers that we used after we created some effects to make the tools easier to use on a single layer. We merged all of those last 3 layers to make our final single image. And we're going to save one more time. So you can see that we just are taking an original image provided by the client, and through all kinds of adjustments and enhancements, we can turn it into something quite different. We've turned a star stealer into a dark, rather mysterious iRobot catching machine. I hope this helps you as you continue to learn Photoshop. I want you to enjoy it and just experiment with the many, many tools available within this software.